I'm Danny Cox here at BBC Radio Oxford Sport, and Oxford United's next match is a week today. It's away at Charlton Athletic, and it'll be dedicated to fighting homophobia as part of Football versus Homophobia's month of action. Well, the Proud Valiants group have invited their counterparts, the Oxford's LGBTQ plus fan group, to join the event. Their founder, Andrew Smith, joins me now. Andrew, tell me more about the event next weekend. What's happening at Charlton?
Yes, February is traditionally LGBT History Month, and Football versus Homophobia. They sort of use that to promote diversity through football, through the footballing network, and sort of celebrate the achievements of the LGBT community. So next week at the Charlton match, some people might have seen it with Stonewall's campaign last year with rainbow laces. So it's going to be things like rainbow corner flags and notes in the programme and things like that, and message on the scoreboard, just to promote that there are a lot of LGBT fans out watching football and in all sports. It's just to create a sort of a welcoming atmosphere to every single fan, regardless of background, regardless of race, regardless of gender, and anything like that. So it's just using it really to promote how good it is that anyone can attend football, and it's a sort of a sport welcome for all.
And the reverse of that, how much of an issue is homophobia in football? Is it something you've seen at Oxford United?
It is. That's the reason I started the group. I was at a match the season before last. I think it was, I can't remember who was playing. There was about 3 or 4 instances during that match where I heard stuff from the stand I was in. I wasn't even like the traditional hardcore East stand behind the goal and things like that. It was just behind the director's box. So it wasn't like, it doesn't matter what part of the ground you're in. And I heard it there. And I thought, I've heard about Pride in Football and how they've had a network of LGBT groups at different clubs. I thought I'll look into the Oxford one. And there wasn't an Oxford one. So I sort of just spoke to them and said, is there any way I can sort of set up the Oxford branch of it? And it's sort of, joined in with Pride of Football to sort of try and get that message out across Oxford as well.
So still fairly new as a group. What kind of things have you done? What might we have seen, and what kind of successes might you have had?
Well, it is still fairly new from Oxford, because I've, in the last, 3 or 4 months, I've moved house and moved to London and changed jobs and things like that, so I haven't had as much input as I'd like, but hopefully next week's the first one where I get to meet another fan group. But it's sort of creating a network between the groups as well. So on Tuesday this week, or was it Wednesday, I went to the Arsenal-Chelsea semi-final as a guest of the Gay Gooners, and they had about 20 or 30 people there on that day, and they've got banners around the stand and are really pushing it. They're really welcoming there, and Pride in Football are quite close to the FA and have been to England matches as well. And they take part in the Pride Parade through London, and it's really snowballing the whole thing really, because I think they started 4 years ago with 4 groups, and now I think they've just had the 42nd group has sort of sprung up, and it's sort of spread across the Scottish teams as well. I think Dundee and Celtic have got groups as well now, and it's not just at club level, they're trying to promote it further than that, say with the World Cup in Russia next year. There's obviously been some very high profile cases of problems in the LGBT community in Russia, and it is quite dangerous. So they've had meetings is this World Cup going to be safe for all fans to go to, and try and address that, and then spread that through the clubs and saying football is for all, whether it's watching Oxford United or if it's the World Cup final.
I don't want to put you out of business, but in an ideal world, we shouldn't need your group at all. How optimistic are you that football is becoming more inclusive?
I am optimistic, and it'd be wrong for me to say it won't happen. I think hopefully with the next generation coming through, if it's put in place now, it might take 10 years before it happens. But if it's a done thing now, that this is not acceptable to say at a football match or to say to football fans, the next generation coming through will see it as unacceptable, and it will filter out that way. I suppose if you want to compare it to something like the racism in England in the 70s and 80s, like with obviously Cyril Regis sadly died the other week, and when he was playing football, the racism was awful, and same with John Barnes, and that's sort of been filtered out now, and there's still progress to be made in that area, and I reckon the same could happen for homophobia in football as well. It will become more welcoming, and it's important that groups are out there, and it has been promoted saying it is acceptable to attend football matches. You will hear language still going forward, but hopefully that will become less and less before hopefully completely disappearing.
With homophobia, we've come a long way since football in the 60s and 70s, but has the pace of change maybe slowed down a bit now? It's hard to judge, and I think it's quite
wrong to judge as well. If it's still there, then work still needs to be done. If there's progress, there's progress, and it may have slowed down, but say with Sky Sports getting behind the Rainbow Laces campaign, nearly all the clubs did as well, and it's just that visibility is becoming more unacceptable. So you could say, oh, it may have slowed down, but Sky Sports dedicated a whole weekend to, like, on Sky Sports News and Soccer Saturday, they had the rainbow flag on the screen at all times underneath the score and things like that. So it is still a big thing, and I don't think it's slowed down if I put on the spot, to be honest.
So we'll see and we'll hear much more about this at Oxford United's away match at Charlton next weekend. Any plans for an event like this at the Castad?
Grenoble Road, hopefully at one point. It's been a bit choppy change in my life and moving house and things like that, but I will need to pick this up with Oxford again, and hopefully there will be something, hopefully this season, maybe next season as well, just try and, but even if it's just a flag at the ground, just to say it's a welcome thing, or just even programme notes or something like that, just get something out there for fans, sort of a bit of background about what we're doing, what Pride in Football do, what Football versus Homophobia do, and things like that, and try and push something through that way, just to sort of, so people understand where we're coming from, rather than sort of attack people who have been homophobic. It's like an educational tool to sort of put the message out there.
And finally, have you got good connections with Oxford United, good routes through to them?
I've got a few details. I've sort of hoped to meet the Darrell Eales and his secretary at some point, but that hasn't happened yet, just mainly on my part, just because of, say, moving to London. But I've spoken quite a lot to a friend called Joe White, who looks after the Gay Gooners, and he's sort of given me a lot of information about how best to approach a club and sort of how the networks they can use as well. And say next week I'm meeting Rob from Proud Valiants as well at the match, and we're going to find out more about how he set up the Charlton group and how they sort of network it all that way. And then hopefully from there I'll sort of hopefully try and put something in place with Oxford as well.
We wish you the very best for a high-profile event at Charlton next week. I guess good news for you, although it's only from one person. Michael's called up. He said he's been at Oxford United for 50 years. He's never heard homophobic language. That's good to hear, but I guess there's still work to be done.
Yeah, it depends on... It's hard to judge on one person. He might not have heard it, but I don't know his background. I don't know if he's gay or anything like that. You will notice it more if you are from the community, I feel. And like, if I've heard it in the top of the second tier of the South Stand, it's still there. Well, I spoke to someone earlier. They sent me a tweet earlier, and it's about how they goes, "Oh, what about stamping out abusive language that isn't homophobia?" And I was trying to say, like, it's not like, we need to tackle homophobia only. It's the abusive language. Like, you've got the next generation of Oxford fans coming through. You want to keep Oxford a big club and getting the fans in the ground. And if people are saying stuff in front of children and it becomes the norm, the next generation won't bat an eye. They think, oh, this is what happens at a football match. You need to stamp out everything across the board, really, and just trying to educate people, like, it's not the right thing to do. And you don't want Oxford in 10 years' time to be a regressive club compared to everyone else, and the efforts they're making as well.
Andrew Smith, founder of Oxford's LGBTQ plus fan group. Many thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Danny.
Hope you have lots of success next weekend. It's BBC.